just really looking for a lot of help right now.
Hey, listen, don't worry about it, man. I got you, bro. I got you.
I got you. Trust me.
You can trust me. I got your back.
Look, trust me, man. I got you.
Don't worry. I got you.
Confía en mí, todo va a estar bien.
So lovely. It's like Mr. Rogers. Well, again, welcome to those that are watching online. We're glad you're with us today. And we're continuing our series on trust issues. And many of you know that we just got back from a little family vacation to see the sequoias. It was on our bucket list, and none of our family seen them. So all 8 of us adults and my grandson, we got together, had a great Airbnb there in the mountains, and it was just a beautiful time. And so I wanted to share a little bit of my vacation with you, because one thing I prayed for happened when we were in the forest on the first day, if we got that video. I prayed, Lord, I just want to see a bear. And we saw a mama with a baby. So that was an answer to prayer, day one. And then the other thing that I asked for, I was like, Lord, I'd really like to catch a fish with my grandson. It'd be his first fish ever, his first fish with Grandpa. And look at that. Isn't that adorable? And those aren't the big sequoias there, but they're definitely some of them. So we'll roll that next one. Just sharing part of my family vacation with you here. And I think at this point he doesn't realize he has a fish.
Oh my goodness, guys.
Oh, reel him up. You got a fish.
Wow.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. You almost got him. Oh, jump. Got one down. You got fish. Yeah. Woo. Come on, reel him up. Reel him all the way up. We'll catch him. We'll take him home and eat him. Yeah, fish.
Keep going. Keep
Go
going.
line. Reel him up.
I think that's the point he realized.
Yeah. Yeah, reel him up. You got him. You got him. Oh, now pull him up. Take the pole. Take it. Pull him up on the ground. Here, take the pole. Pull him up. Hold the pole like this. Pull him up. Pull him up. Pull him up. You got a fish. Ah! You got one.
So, can you imagine that moment? I've watched that video like 50 times already. And then one of the things we did in the cabin, or place we rented, was we watched Cars 3. He loves to watch Cars. So we'd watch a little bit, then pause it, watch a little bit. And on the way back, we went to Ventura, California, get a stop, because it's on the way back from there to LAX. And after watching Cars all week, we actually just saw this pic on the side of the road. We saw Mater, a 1939 or whatever it is, wrecker. And so we stopped, and that's Grandma with Zion. He was so excited to see Cars. And I learned something with Zion. We've seen him several times, and I've learned to send him videos, because then Mom can show them to him whenever he can watch them, and then he hears Grandpa's voice and gets to see Grandpa. And there was one point where we were playing in the cabin, and I threw him up and flipped him upside down, and he's not used to that. And he screamed bloody murder like Grandpa was throwing him to the bear or something, right? And so I immediately noticed, that's that he doesn't like that, right? And so his mom's trying to teach him to say too much, and he was trying to say too much. And so I immediately pulled him back. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, here, give Grandpa a hug. And I gave him a kiss. And I thought about building trust. And I thought, it didn't affect the other things we did that week, because I have a track record with Zion. Every time he sees me, I'll just go throwing him upside down and scaring the crap out of him, because I love him and I want him to trust me. And so I realized that even though I flipped him upside down and it freaked him out, and it did, because we had that track record, I gave him a hug and gave him a kiss, said, Grandpa loves you. That was too much. Oh, we won't do that anymore. He was cool. And then we had fun. One night they went to go watch the sunset. I'm like, why don't I just stay here with Zion? He's not going to want to do that. We'll stay here. And so we got out the deck of cards, and I did the 52 card pickup. We just threw cards all over the place. Then we went upstairs on the balcony that overlooked the living room, and we threw them from up there, and I got video of them coming down. We just had such a great time together, right? And that really ties in with the message today, because what we're learning about today is the 5 essentials of trust. 5 things that we need to build or work on in our lives and that we need from other people to really have trust in our relationships. Like we said last week, trust is earned, not awarded. Trust isn't built on feelings or promises, but on relevant, observable behavior over time. So it's not just a lower brain thing of feelings, it's also things that you observe with the upper brain to realize, okay, I can trust this person because over time I've seen them and they prove themselves trustworthy. Now, the 5 essentials of trust actually are from Dr. Henry Cloud, so I want to give credit where credit's due. We're going to share with you today, a lot of the meat of it is his 5 essentials of trust. So if you want to take some notes or write some things down, they'll be beneficial. So the first one is understanding. James 1:19 says, understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. So the foundation of trust isn't just given, like we read, but it's something that's earned. It's something that that you have to feel that someone cares about you, that they understand you, right? Because people can know a lot about you, but you still kind of feel like they don't care, right? They know a lot about you, but it just doesn't seem kind of genuine or real. Trust requires safety, and safety requires understanding. So, which is a lot of people, you realize that a lot of folks you talk to, they won't really listen to you until they know that you've listened to them and sought to understand them. And it's amazing how far that will go. Most of us, when we get with people, we're excited and we want to talk about us and what we did and what we're going on with, right? And so we've got to learn how to take a chill and learn to listen to people, right? To listen much until people feel listened to and they feel validated, and then we can talk. So when we feel listened to and understood, like someone gets us, it lowers a lot of things. It causes us to listen better. It causes us to think better, make better decisions, reason better. And all that comes because we feel like the other person gets us. If we feel like they don't get us, we're kind of like on an alert or attention, to where things just aren't quite the same. Even Carl Rogers was early in psychotherapy. He proved that the results of just reflective listening is what we call it now. But he proved if you would just mirror and reflect back what someone was telling you, they actually saw improvement in their mental health. They didn't even need directions or they didn't need solutions necessarily, although that can be good. But just because they felt heard and seen, they actually got better. When someone knows that what they like, when they know what they desire, that we know what they desire, when they know that we know what hurts them, like flipping them upside down, and that we're going to commit not to do that, right? Then we see that they've actually taken action to meet our needs and love us and take care of us. I mean, all of us hate being misunderstood, right? There's one thing that you say something, someone like, that's not what you say. Oh yeah, that's what you say, you're being misunderstood. However, we all hate it. But the question we've got to ask is, how good are we, or how good are you at understanding others? How often do you sit and think some of these questions? How do other people experience me? Do they feel understood by me? How do I make them feel? How does my behavior impact them? And what do they need from me? So when was the last time you sat down and thought about this for some of your close relationships and tried to answer even a few of these questions to really get outside of ourselves, kind of like we learned last year in our memory verse, right? Prefer others above yourself, which comes up as number 2. The second essential of trust is motive. Philippians says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. We talk about people that have a good motives, and we say things in certain phrases, and put some of those up for you, that we know we have trust when we say, hey, they're in it for all the right reasons. You can tell they really care. And some of these, they'll do anything for their friends. I know that person's got my back. These are the kind of things that we say about people when we feel like their motives are right. But when we don't feel this way about someone, then we get in a situation where we're always wondering, what are they really doing this for? What is their agenda, right? What are they really in this for me or for the mission or whatever? Or is there some other motive that, they're in it for the pay, or they're, like we shared last week, they're a hireling, if you will. So someone can understand you and genuinely care about you, but not have the ability to do what you need them to do. There we go. So when you think about this, think about relationships in your own life. Do you have people that you like know they've got character, integrity or something, but you're like, I'm not sure they really care about me? What's that old saying? You know, you don't care how much someone knows until you know how much they care. I mean, that's very, very true. And so when you do develop this kind of relationship with someone, you're able to give them more grace. If you're suspicious of someone and they do something that's off or off kilter, then you automatically get suspicious and defensive and start wondering what's going on here. But once you develop trust with someone, like hopefully we've developed here together, right? Many of us. Then when something doesn't go quite right, like flipping you upside down, if you will, okay, you don't just think, oh, I'm suspicious or whatever, but you're more likely to cut someone some slack and grace and say, oh, there must be something we don't know because that doesn't sound like this person, right? There must be some fact I'm missing because that doesn't sound like what they would normally do. And so, plain and simple, we don't trust someone's motives if they don't seem to care about us and what we care about. That's really a big part of motive. And then 3, the essential of trust is ability. Now, this verse is from Exodus 3:3-5. And basically, this is just talking about the skills and abilities that people had that God gave them to help build the temple. And so some of them got very specific jobs because they were good at a specific skill. If you think about this in the New Testament, you think about people have different spiritual gifts. Some people have the gift of mercy, like my wife. That makes a better counselor, right? You might think, oh, as a pastor, I should have mercy and the gift of mercy. Well, I don't. That's not one of my top gifts. And so, you know, I have other ones. And so if you don't know that and you're expecting to come to me and me be all, oh, yeah, I know how you feel, like, you know, put my counselor voice on, that's probably not going to happen. And if you don't know that, then you're disappointed because, well, yeah, I went to him and he wasn't compassionate. He didn't seem like he even cared, you know. I don't think he has the gift of mercy at all. But maybe it's good that I have the gift maybe of leadership or teaching or other gifts, right, that still empower us. And so when you think of ability, think of it also as your expectations. Someone can be wonderful and capable in many ways, but not trustworthy in a specific way. For example, my mom, God rest her soul, I would have never gone to my mom for financial advice. Just saying that wasn't her thing. She was like, we got money, let's go spend it and buy someone something. She was generous, you can learn generosity, see? But as far as how to manage money, I wouldn't have learned that from her. But did I trust my mom? Did I love my mom? Of course. So you had to learn what you could or couldn't get from a person. I trust Stephanie, my wife. I trust her to be faithful and be here every Sunday, no matter how tired she is or what she does. But there's times that she might do something different, right? And I would never ask her to perform brain surgery on me, right? Because I know she doesn't have that ability. So I wouldn't trust or expect her to do that. I wouldn't even ask her to do that. She probably would like to do that at times with me, but I wouldn't do that. So that's kind of an idea that highly trustworthy people can be seemingly untrustworthy just because they don't have a certain ability. And so you've got to be able to weed that out, because what happens in marriage, if you don't do that, you expect certain things, and then when certain things don't happen and you don't have that need met, 2 things can happen. First, you can think, well, they just must not care. They must not care about me. The second thing that can happen is you can let that bleed over into all areas of marriage and just say, well, I don't trust them to meet any of my needs because they're not good at this or this. And so you have to be discerning to use that downstairs brain, the feelings we talked about, and the upstairs brains of rational thinking, and cut some people some slack and get to the point where you're just able to say, you know what, I get that. Whatever it might be, you think about your own relationships, that this person's never going to be that for me, whether it's consistent, whether it's keeping what you say you're dreaming about doing, like my best friend, you know, whatever it might be, you've got to figure that out. And that's why we need to give grace and get understanding like we're doing today in this series, because it helps us to weed through relationships and build trust even more. Because if I know that you're great at a lot of things, but you're not going to ever show up on time, then I let that go. And I don't expect you to show up on time. You know, couples that are happiest are couples that know their weaknesses and know their shortcomings, and they can talk about them and just laugh about them, and it's okay, rather than get defensive about them. And, you know, like Alex, you know, his cooking, Alex is cooking, you know, there's just things that you can joke about and laugh about, and it's okay, right? And so what can happen when these relationships is there's a thing called the horn and the halo effect. And basically what this is this is more when it talks about in business, but it also applies to this situation of trust too. The halo effect is when we associate intelligence, competence, success with someone who is conventionally attractive or in a majority group, and then benefits, privilege, active, attractive people, the negative qualities of an employee will be overlooked. So basically what this means, the halo effect, is there's something you really like about someone, and you like it so much, the charisma, their personality, whatever, that you don't see the other things that might not be there. They might not have certain abilities. And then you put them in charge of something they shouldn't be put in charge of, and then later you're frustrated, like, wow, I thought, why couldn't I count on you to do this? Well, because just because you see some good things doesn't mean they're good at everything. It's almost like a bias. In this context, it can only be prejudice. And then there's the opposite effect, the horn effect, the halo and the horns. The horns are, okay, this person, say, made me mad about something and I don't feel I can trust them. Therefore now, I'm not going to trust them with anything. They can't do anything right. It's kind of extreme situations. They don't fit into a certain group or what I think, so the positive qualities of an employee will be overlooked. Then you've got a situation where you've got someone that could be really good at something. You've got a friend or a spouse that you could enjoy what they do well, but you can't enjoy that because of what they did that so-called were the horns. Does that make sense? And so that definitely ties into what we're talking about here in trust and communication. So just make sure that someone has the skills to do what you're asking them to do. I recently read a story, and it's funny, it was kind of like I did with my son-in-law, but a man met his daughter's husband-to-be, and the guy said, hey, can I take you out to dinner? I want to talk to you about getting your daughter's hand in marriage. And they talked a little bit, and he goes, hey, I'd like to continue this conversation. He says, next time we meet, I want you to bring your tax returns for 2 years and your credit report. And the guy was like, what? Is that all you care about is money? He's like, no, it's not that I care about money. What I care about is that you have the ability to take care of my daughter once you're married, because she's the most precious thing to me in the entire world. And so it's not about the money. It was about, do you have the ability to take care of her? And I felt that same way when Tess was about to get married. I had my son-in-law, JR, fill out a whole packet of stuff of personality tests, family history analysis. I didn't do a background check, but I did about everything else that I could, love languages, and he was like, wow, this is crazy. He says, I've never met someone this involved with their daughter's life. He said he sat in the driveway and thought, okay, I either need to marry this girl or run as fast as I can. I'm not sure which one. And of course, they celebrated their 8-year anniversary while we were in the Sequoias, and so obviously that's the rest of the story. So the fourth essential of trust, 4 out of 5, the fourth one is character. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. So usually when someone talks about character, we think about morals or morality. But there's more to character than that. Character has to do with, do you know what it means to put in a hard day's work? Okay, it's not just, are you not going to cheat or steal? You know, how do you approach others? How do you approach a task? When you go into a room, do you think, how can I serve? Or like, hey, I'm here, let's party, which neither one's right or wrong, but it's just different kinds of character things that we have built inside of us, right? And so what's really important to understand is that this character in business, it might be called like the soft skills or your emotional intelligence, right? Instead of an IQ, you have an EQ. And the Harvard Business did this study, and they said that people that actually have a high EQ, emotional intelligence, can succeed and do better than someone that's got a lot of training and other things. And they found that it was twice as beneficial to them. And here's something else about EQ, what exactly it is. Thank you for that. So it's how we manage ourselves and our relationships. And this has very much to do with our character. Now, sometimes you found people that seem very competent, let's say as a supervisor or someone you work with, but then there's things that you notice on the emotional level that they're defensive or perfectionist. They can be controlling or hard driving. They might be arrogant or emotionally unavailable or really gossipy and unpredictable. And so you find yourself in situations like, man, that person can put out a report or whatever and be like nobody. But it's just really difficult to put them in certain situations because they can't work with people. They can't deal with people. And I put them in a situation and they end up creating more drama than they do the benefit of their skill. You see that a lot of times in ministry and life in general. So you've got to learn, where is this person best placed in the body of Christ to fulfill their gifts without being in a situation where there's a lot of drama following them, if you guys know what I mean by that, right? So character goes beyond, can they do the task, to are they emotionally safe, okay? We want to be able to trust the whole person. So number 5 is a track record. the last of the 5 essentials of trust. Proverbs 11:3 says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. So this idea is whatever happened before that you saw in someone's life is most likely to happen again unless you see them do something to change. So it would be silly, if you will, to trust and think that they're going to be able to do something that they're not. The idea here is someone, let's say, gets kicked out of their house and they say, hey, look, I'm sorry, and you kicked them out for a specific reason, whatever it might be. And they say, I'm sorry. And your response can be, I know you're sorry. Now prove to me that you've changed, and then we'll talk about what we can do from here. We can't just keep saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and never do anything about it. I mean, we can. It's good to still say you're sorry versus not say it anymore, right? But people need to know that track records are what we look at. And there's nothing wrong with looking at someone's track record and saying, unless something changes, this is likely what's going to happen. Now, I tend not to do that because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt so much that I can be kind of naive on that area. And that's not good either. But that's one of my characteristics, that I'd rather be naive and trusting to a fault rather than be suspicious and doubting to a fault. And that's just what I've chosen. And you got to balance that out because you've got to look at track record. And here's the thing about track record is there's no quick fixes. You have to be patient with yourself. You have to be patient with others and give them time to grow. So there may be an area that they're working on and you're trying to build trust, but don't let that become the horn effect where everything else is corroded and ruined. You can actually be thankful for a lot of good things in a person's life. And if you speak to them and build those things up and communicate those things, that can actually cause them to rise to the occasion and work on the things that you're talking about that need to change. If you nag the thing that needs to change all the time, you're just really probably, most likely, almost always going to make it worse. And so you've got to understand that track records don't change overnight. A person who doesn't always tell the truth isn't going to just suddenly start being honest. A person that's kind of self-involved and talks about themselves a lot isn't going to all of a sudden become a really great listener. Inexperienced people don't suddenly know how to tackle complex projects. And a lazy person doesn't suddenly become a workhorse, okay? So those things don't always happen. I think, do we have those up there? They're over there chatting among themselves. I think they'll probably flip through those now. Yeah, there we go, deep listeners. So what I want us to do this morning is to think about what areas of trust are missing in some of our relationships. Now, we're going to think about ourselves, but you can even think about someone else first. If there's a relationship that's disappointing or not working out, think about, the things we've covered, the understanding, the ability, the track record, the motive, right? What are some things that of these 5s might be missing in that relationship? And that can give you some clarity and understanding because we need to be able to cut people slack the same way that we want to be cut slack, right? And then the next step toward making positive change in your life is self-awareness. Now, this self-awareness can be what I just said about others, but it's also about yourself. Ask yourself, of these 5 areas, are there areas that my track record isn't so great? And what can I do to start to change that? And please remember, as I share these essentials of his this morning, everyone takes time to grow, right? Everyone takes time to grow, including you. So you can't be so hard on yourself that you don't give yourself time, but it's really about what are you characterized by? Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone miscommunicates. Everybody has errors and has bad days. But what are you characterized by? Meaning you may have a bad hair day like me, but is it every day like me? Or do you actually have some days that your hair looks, nice? Same way with your character. What are you characterized by? Are normally you faithful and on time, but sometimes you're just late, or are you late all the time? And people just come to expect, even label, that family's always late, right? I mean, we all know who they are, right? I mean, just even talking this morning, right? And so some are here today and some aren't because maybe they were so late they decided not to come. I don't know. But the point is, you can still love someone that has a character issue in that area, and it doesn't have to ruin or wreck the relationship. And we need to be close enough to each other that we can cover each other in love versus sitting there tapping our watches like, and what a waste of time, and get yourself all off kilter for all that, right? So what are you characterized by? Here's some encouragement. In Luke 2, 48 and 52, we see Jesus, his parents realized that Jesus wasn't around, and they were astonished, and they went back to find him. And he says, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." So this is an example where the mother and father of Jesus show that Jesus made them anxious, and that they felt like they couldn't trust him because he was supposed to be with the caravan in their mind, and he wasn't. Now, we all know that Jesus is where the Father wanted him to be. So hopefully this even gives you more insight to think, okay, where you thought they should be versus where God wanted them to be could be different, which is a whole nother essential that's not even in here, but I'm just adding that for free, right? But here's the point. Even Jesus had to build a track record with his own family. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them in verse 51. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. So you got to say, well, but he caused people not to trust him. Well, he was growing. Was it that he had integrity issues? No, he was sinless. So it shows even the sinless Messiah Christ, who was fully God and fully man, had to grow in wisdom and stature. And if he had to grow and develop a track record, took him what, like 30 years to where then he was ready for his ministry and people actually trusted him? So it takes time. But in that time, he did enough things that people saw his track record and began to trust him, that when he finally came on the scene and called people to follow him, they consistently saw what he did and he developed trust. And we can develop trust also. So don't get down on yourself. You guys can come on up. Don't get down on yourself. Don't get super discouraged as you're continuing to try to grow. And extend grace to one another and to yourselves as we all together work on these 5 essentials of trust. Might be a fun exercise to go home and think of which of these 5 essentials of trust do I wish my pastor would work on. You guys shoot me a text. See how that goes. Come on up. So think about this week. Think about your relationships, some people that have disappointed you. Did you have trust in the wrong place? Did you have unrealistic expectations because they're never going to be good at that thing, whatever it might be? Is it something that they really need to be good at? Are there other relationships that you could find that, people like to fish? My wife kind of tricked me. When we first got married, she went fishing with me at a pond. She caught bass, crappie, catfish all in one time. And I thought, this is going to be great. I got me a wife that's a fishing buddy. But then she decided she didn't like to fish. And all these years, she doesn't fish with me. But that's okay, because I have guys like Rick who fishes with me, and my best friend who fishes with me. So I realized that expectation that my wife's going to be gung-ho fisherwoman is not going to happen. And you know what? That's okay, because she has a lot of great gifts in other areas that by far make up for it. But if all my life I was always disgruntled every time I went fishing because my wife's not fishing with me, imagine what that would be like, right? And so cut each other grace and slack in your life, and practice these 5 essentials with others and learn where you need to practice them. And then next week, if you feel like, okay, I need some help with this, we're going to talk about building your trust muscles. So be sure and be here next week.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give, and then you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.